Here we go now. Here we go now. Here we go now. Here we go now.
Well, I love that little intro, Howard Bender. Here we go now. Lisa Ann Does Fantasy on the Bettor Sports Network, also on Fantasy Alarm. We want all of you in the chat, and I want to welcome in one of my friends who I've enjoyed doing shows with over the years, who I listen to every single day, as was today. My friend that you know as Roto Buzz Guy, that we all know as Howard Bender. Howard, it is great to be here with you on Wednesday nights.
Reunited and it feels so good.
I truly
don't know
thought
if I
that
have
was
to pay royalties for that or not, but I'm going to sing it anyway for you.
I'm going to say that we both sound so different that it could be considered more of like a karaoke version, which you don't need to have any sort of royalties for. Howard, I was listening to you earlier. I know we got a ton of news to get to, but we also got to get reacquainted because we are reunited. And it's been quite some time since you and I have shared the airwaves. Habit to say airwaves. I guess we can now say face waves since we're on YouTube.
Right? Is this our first live? I mean, I've been a guest on your show, here on BSM before, but I mean, I don't think we've done a show where we're face to face here, and that's great for me. It sucks for you. I'm so sorry that you got to look at this, but nevertheless, so great to be here with you. I'm so excited about when I got the opportunity to do this show with you again. I was jumping out of my skin. I was so happy about it because, you and I, when we were doing the shows before, I mean, we had so much fun. The knowledge dropping, it's standard. Like, we're both great at what we do here, but to sit here and just be able to have this much fun with you on a show, this is a blast for me, an absolute blast. So thank you.
What really kicked it off was we got to be together last weekend in Canton at the Pro Football Hall of Fame for the Fantasy Football Expo, which is an event that I have had FOMO for every year. You guys have gone without me, and this year it landed in my schedule. What a great event that Bob Lung puts together.
I loved it. I mean, last year was actually my first Fantasy Football Expo. I remember when it first started a few years ago, all they did was the Kings Classic Draft, and that was the end of it. Now it's it's panel discussions, it's meet and greets, it's, the industry mingling with each other. But, I get such a charge out of hanging out with subscribers, listeners, people who are oh, I had one guy who was raving by the fact that he won 30 grand playing PGA DFS with the family. I met up with Rodney and Kim, who were celebrating their 20th year anniversary at the Expo, and he's wearing a shirt that says "Oh baby." She's wearing a Her Story shirt, and I'm getting all choked up. I'm getting all emotional over it, and I gotta tell you, man, the Expo, I'm so glad you were there, and you got to hang out with everybody. You popped onto the show with me when Fensty and I were broadcasting. I mean, yeah, what an amazing event, and super big shout out to Bob Lung for everything that he does to put that together.
Well, let me give you a couple little fun facts that I learned from Bob Lung about the Fantasy Expo. So did you know in 2019, when Bob Lung started this event, the attendees for the first event were 70 people. And this year in 2023, there were over 700 people there. To me, that is success. And it came to me in the strangest way. So I don't know if you know this, but the consistency guide from Bob Lung is the first thing that I read every summer. So what I do with Amazon, when something's coming out, you can get the little notification that it's released and it's available. So I had mine set as I do every year, and it arrived, and I'm out on my patio. I take a picture of it. Yeah, that one. I tweet it. And right away, it connects Bob and I, and he brings up the Expo. And I look at my schedule and I'm like, wow, I never thought reading the consistency guide would give me so much access to, yes, my schedule is available. I will be going. we get to not only see our friends and listeners, but we've also gotten to see, and I know you more than me. I've only been in this space since 2013, Howard, but how the business has evolved, the diversity in the business now. I can remember being one of very few women when I first started to go into FSGA. So there were a lot of flannel shirts and a lot of Dockers. Okay. There were not a lot of YSLs or Louboutins. Okay. But now we got that going for us right now. It's true.
Why are you making fun of my Dockers like that? Come on.
I'm not making fun. I'm just saying how many times I posted photos and everybody under the comments wrote, did they all put out a memo that you could only wear a plaid shirt and Dockers? Okay.
Right. It's so funny that you bring that up. It's like the FSGA conference when it was here in San Francisco, and I invited the whole crew that was there to come to the club that my wife and I owned, and it was for Lil Kim's first concert.
I can only imagine where this is going.
And like it was her first concert back from being in jail.
Right.
And and the whole thing blew up, and so I brought with me
the
Jeff Mans,
Dockers crew,
Ray Flowers, right, Ted Schuster, the boys from RT Sports, Tim Jensen. I mean, we walked in there and we stood out like a turd in a punch bowl. It was ridiculous.
It was a lot of fun. And Little Kim was like, man, this is still better attire than what Little Kim was experiencing in prison before the let out. But at the same time, still she wanted a little variety. And her fans was like, what happened to my fan base while I was in prison? Where did these guys come from?
Why is everyone wearing a beige polo?
Did a PTA meeting just let out? What's going on here? We've got a lot of people in the chat already. Jared Moore says, Lisa Ann is the combo I never knew I needed, but I'm glad to have it. Have a great show. I'm always here for the comments. Mr. Scamper's in the room. My friend Scrimp Daddy in the room. Pine Tar Card says, and this is a good one, Howard, I've listened to you for years. Never seen you before, but the beard works, my guy.
Oh, thanks. It hides my double chin, so thank you very much.
And Byron wants to know why Leonard Fournette is the only one without a team, and that's something that we're going to talk about. But so much good stuff going on. Now, I feel as if because I wrote such a robust list of notes. Did you watch Hard Knocks last night, Howard Bender?
I did not. I want to be able to binge it all in one fell swoop. And to be perfectly honest, all right, we're going to talk about things that scare us later on in the show and about the football season. But I can say it right now. I'm so scared that I'm so hyped up about the Jets. And you know me. I mean, we've known each other for how many years? Have I ever been hyped up about a Jets season at all? No. So now I'm getting all jazzed up, I'm getting all charged and everything. I feel like if I start watching Hard Knocks, then I'm really drinking the Kool-Aid. And the next thing you know, it's going to be met with massive disappointment. But so tell me what happened. How is Hard Knocks so far for the Jets?
First and foremost, I really don't want to be the person that gives away the ending to the movie. I've done that before. I did it to Bobby Cables. I felt so bad. He told me about it in person when I met him this weekend. I never knew that by me talking about the end of a movie on radio one night, I ruined it for him. But for you, if you're going to binge it, see, I like Hard Knocks because it kind of eases me into the excitement. First of all, I think HBO does such an incredible production job, from the music choices to, the sounds to the drone footage. I'm looking at it from a completely technical side as well. I love to hear, the pads starting to clang. I love to hear the fights. I love all of it. But what I'm going to tell you is this. They brought in a guy that goes by Mr. Q. Okay. They said he's like a motivational speaker. He seemed more like a magician. And when you watch it, and those of you in the chat, I want to know if you feel the same way as me. The one thing that really puzzled me was the puzzle. So he brings out this puzzle. He did a lot of magic tricks, and they were all spot on. But then again, being from the production side, I know about editing. I know about teasing. I know about everything. How Aaron Rodgers ended up with a goldfish in a box in his hand, I will never know. I will never know, and it will bother me for eternity. And I will tell you this, if I do get the chance to go to camp this year, or if I do meet him, I am going to ask him about the goldfish in the box, because I don't know if it was dried and petrified. I don't know if there was enough water in there to keep it alive. They didn't show us enough. It's just that the animal that somebody said, because the magician, motivational speaker said, name me an animal. And somebody said a goldfish, which if you ask me, a goldfish is not an animal. Okay.
What?
But I understand it had to be an animal that would fit in Aaron Rodgers' hand. Okay. So he brings out this puzzle and he has a player go up there and divide some of the pieces and throw them to the ground. Then throw some of the other pieces, then grab someone in his hand. And then he puts the puzzle up that's missing one piece. First thing I noticed with the puzzle, all the pieces are the exact same shape. Right there. I was bothered. I was bothered by said mentalist, I think magician. Okay. Then, of course, the one piece the player has in his hand out of all of them that would. Fish is not an animal for sure. It's what do you call fish? You don't call them animals. We call them, there's something else. Things that breathe with gills are not considered an animal.
Yes, they are.
No, they're not. They're considered something else. It's like what you go to bio school for. Okay, back to this. So player A
I'm gonna hit the Google machine while you're
and puts this puzzle piece in.
An ichthyoid, by the way, is the scientific term.
Thank you very much.
Still part of the animal kingdom, though.
Okay, so puts the puzzle piece in. Of course, it's the only piece. What makes anyone in their mind believe that that box of pieces that were pushed to the floor weren't all the same piece that was put in the missing link? Like, fish are an aquatic vertebrate, animals that have gills but lack limbs with digits like fingers or toes. Recall that vertebrates are animals without internal backbones. Amphibians, somebody else says, a fish is a fruit, not an animal. Okay, we're getting out. We're going off the rails here.
Somebody said I'm an animal.
So the magician really had me rattled. Okay, I'm talking rattled. Okay, I was Googling. And I was like, I will pay any amount of money to set up a Zoom conference with this said person. But first, I must talk to every athlete I know on the team and ask them behind the scenes questions, because this had me, and this was at the very beginning, but I love Hard Knocks. Now, one of the things we learned, okay, this is going to be our saying for our show. There was a moment where the defensive coordinator is walking around talking to the defense. And what does he say? Everyone, I want you to know that sometimes you've got to raise your leg to mark your territory.
Ooh.
I couldn't believe that's where that went. He's like, raise your leg, and then he gives it a minute or two. He goes, to mark your territory.
Didn't we see Odell Beckham get a flag and a fine for doing that?
Yes. He so did. The voice of God, Byron, because Aaron calls him the voice of God. The voice of God is the voice of HBO Hard Knocks, who Aaron got to meet in Tahoe at the charity golf event. This is how closely I follow. I'm on Aaron Rodgers' watch at all times. I've read every book in the Aaron Rodgers book club as well. But here's what I learned. Okay, when I say HBO crushes the music, there was a moment where there was that rain cancellation in Carolina for their practice. They used the original I Can't Stand the Rain. And man, I can't stand the rain. Like, so soulful. I was like, oh, HBO, you're killing it with the music, right? The rookie show was pathetic and amazing all at the same time. I'm very curious why Aaron Rodgers still uses earbuds that are connected to the phone and not wireless. Is it that he's afraid of the brainwaves? What is it? Why does he not have earbuds without a wire? Nathaniel Hackett turned to Zach Wilson at one point in a joint practice and said, "You turned me on with that one." By the way, I used the emoji with one hand over the eye because that's one of the cutest emojis ever when I wrote that. And then here's the real deal. Here's something we learned about Aaron Rodgers last night that I think has turned the world upside down. Aaron Rodgers has this thing with picking up grass.
Like just
and now
pulling it?
He pulls it and he uses it to get a little texture on his hands. He pulls it and he throws it up in the air to see the wind. He does so much with this grass, and they really honed in on it last night. You must have seen him do it like 50, 60 times. I was into it. I was like, this is a quirk that I can get behind, that I can support. This guy has been 2-time MVP. Like, it's got to be all about the grass. Meanwhile, people are spending so much money on stickum and other illegal substances. And this cat, the entire time, is just utilizing Mother Nature to the best of her ability, which brings me to the fact that he often mentions that all fields should be real grass and not turf. And now I know why.
I could dig that. I would love it. I mean, with the way technology has been, I mean, you should be able to have real grass at any stadium. Have you ever been to Allegiant Stadium in Vegas? Like they like the field is on like a giant tray that slides out of the stadium and into the sunlight for it to grow. I mean,
Okay,
like,
they stole that from Arizona.
okay.
Arizona did it first. Who wore it best? Well, definitely not the field from the sod father for the Super Bowl that ruined the Eagles' chances. But yes, that's how Arizona's is as well. It rolls out. You can watch the time lapse on YouTube. It's a brilliant idea because what they realize is at different times of the year, as the round earth, I'm sorry, Kyrie Irving, because you think it's flat, as the round earth switches and the sun hits at different places, I always got to disclose that because we all know it's round, but I don't want him to feel bad from his own opinion because I respect the opinion of athletes. It doesn't grow properly. And when they first built Arizona, they didn't have that rolling out mechanism in the parking lot, and they were realizing the troubles that they were getting into. So it was smart for Vegas to do the same thing. That thing just rolls out like an awning on a trailer and just gets great sun all week.
I
Adam
love it.
just chimed in to say Arizona has their field on a sliding tray too. Adam, great minds think alike. But I'm going to tell you, like, don't wait to binge it because I can't do this every week. I can't just be telling you things that you don't feel the same joy about. You have to go and watch 1 and 2 and tell me, just answer me one question. Was it a magician or a motivational speaker? How did the goldfish in a box end up in my friend Darren Rogers' hand? I just need to know this.
Are so all right, I gotta ask this question here. Are you like completely blown away when you see a magic show? Like, are you like you feel like the person's involved with the dark arts or something like that? Like, because I know a ton of people who are so freaked out by magic that it's just funny to watch them watch a magic show. So, are you of that ilk?
Are you asking me, do you believe in magic?
I didn't realize that we were going to be singing the entire time. I love this.
Okay. It's not that I do or don't believe. I think I was definitely more awestruck when I was a kid. Believe me, my grandfather played the greatest magic tricks with me as a kid. Every time I had a loose tooth, he would do this thing where he tied a string and put it on a doorknob. And he made me believe that he was slamming the door to pull my tooth out. It wasn't until later we had conversations about all the shenanigans from my childhood that I believe was true. And it's like my pet turtle did not elope, Howard. My pet turtle passed away when I was at school. But he told me turtle met another turtle. Hearts were coming out. They couldn't break it up. They let them go on their way until I was 40 years old. I
Oh,
silently thought my turtle eloped and
all
wondered
right.
where it was. So I don't not believe in magic. I haven't watched a magic show in forever, but it was just a bizarre, and I know they do this, it breaks the monotony. One thing you learn on Hard Knocks that I find fascinating every year is how frustrating it gets for teams to be practicing solely with each other. And we're seeing the chippiness start. We're seeing more fights, among teammates. And we saw one today, Dallas Cowboys camp. It's fascinating because there's a burnout there. They don't want to hurt each other. They want to play hard, but they're really chomping at it. I got to tell you, as a Jets fan, you should be very excited about cue ball. Do you know who
Now,
cue ball
cue
is?
ball. No,
This
what's
is the
cue
name
ball?
for Quentin Jefferson.
Ah, okay.
He is your monster. He is fast. He is aggressive. And even in practice, he was making Aaron keep tabs of his invisible sacks because he couldn't sack anybody. But he was saying that would have been a sack. That would have been a sack. It got up to 11. Aaron's canning from the sidelines. But it's just great. And I'm excited for the Jets. I'm excited for you. I'm excited for all Jets fans. And most importantly, we're fans of Curb Your Enthusiasm. To me, this is an Aaron Rodgers spite season. And I truly do believe that the Jets will be going to the Super Bowl.
Wow. Wow. That's a bold statement.
And we're going to get some more bold statements in the show. But let's first recap on what's been going on. My Zeke is wearing a new outfit. I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it, but I do have I'm curious. Zeke has to really be committed to be in New England and do everything that Belichick is going to ask of him. So where's Zeke's mindset? Did he sift around enough with no offers to make himself realize like, hey, I've got to take this money, even though it's kind of minimal? Only 3 million is guaranteed. There's 6 million with incentives. It could be a good spot for him because we know how New England uses the running back position. But do you think Ezekiel Elliott and Bill Belichick can get along as one?
Well, I mean, I don't know like Zeke on a personal level. Like you've met Zeke, you've talked
Yes,
to
I made
Zeke,
him dinner for his 21st birthday at my house.
So all right, so you know Zeke better than me. So I don't really know. What I know about Belichick, and this is one of the things that I heard, is that everybody's talking about, what a hard ass he is, and he's got all these rules and regulations, and he expects that. But then I heard an interview with Tom Brady, who basically said that Belichick, he's a very serious guy. You come prepared every single day to work. If you aren't prepared to work that for, during the day, then Belichick wants nothing to do with you. Like he'll be a total ass to you. And that's that. But if you if you show up every single day, ready to practice, you know the playbook, you understand the scheme, you're ready to go each and every day, then Bill doesn't give a crap what you do. You could go out on the town all night long and have a great grand old time. If you come into practice the next day and you are 100% ready to go and you are in tip-top shape, then boom, then he doesn't care. Go do what you want to do. So I think in that aspect, if Zeke is there and he is prepared to play and practice every single day and put the work in, then he can survive there.
I feel like the Dallas Cowboys situation was probably a bit leaner on him in that structure. And for some reason, he wasn't prepared to go to work every day there. I mean, he didn't come into camp looking as fit as he could have. I think he is one of those players that doesn't do the all year long. You look at a player like Christian McCaffrey, who is working out every day, even when it's off season, even when it's vacation, because he knows that this is how you really do it. You can't shut it down for like 2 months, go out and have a good time every night, show up with a belly and just be like, I'm going to lose it. Because as you get older, we all know it's harder to lose it. It's harder to get your step back. And your body needs to have this muscle memory of consistency. I believe that's where a lot of injuries do come from, is just that going too light on your body and then pushing it too hard once you get to mini camp and camp. So it's going to be interesting. But I mean, if I was a betting woman, as I am,
you are.
I do need to gather a little bit more intel. And what I've been doing today is trying to search out, what's the debt ratio? How great has Zeke been with his money or not been with his money? I need to know how hungry the kid is, because to me, that's going to make the biggest difference. Now, what is different in New England is they have a really specific nutritionalist, does blood work on them when they arrive, teaches them what foods give them inflammation, what things to avoid, which I think all facilities should really have, because we hear so many players saying, oh, I just gave up fast food. And maybe it's that they needed somebody smarter than them to tell them to give up fast food. But when you're making that kind of money off of your body being the tool that you're using to make that money, fast food's kind of out.
Fast food kind of out. Well, listen, I don't want them eating fast food. I really don't. I think again that's one of those regimented things that go according to the team. Dare I say Tom Brady taught that to the Patriots, with the TB12 diet and how how good to his body he was nutritional wise. So, no big bowls of cereal, not healthy, not good,
Not healthy, not good. But look, at least he got a home. Of course, all of us Cowboys fans were, in our back of our minds, we're like, we think he's going to come down on his price and just go back. He doesn't have to do any homework. He knows the playbook. He already knows Dak. They already play well together. It does concern me a bit for that adjustment for Dallas without him. So that's a little bit concerning as a Cowboys fan.
I can understand that. Now, I guess the question is with Zeke off the market now, and Dalvin Cook landing with the Jets, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Do you see Dallas doing anything else, or are they just going to stick with Tony Pollard as their primary back and then see what they have in what is it, Malik Willis or not Malik Willis. He's the quarterback. Who's you guys have Deuce Vaughn. Who's the other backup running back for Dallas? Why am I blanking on his name?
I'm blanking as well.
Malik Davis. Malik Davis. There we go.
Yeah, Malik Davis. What about Ronald Jones? You don't have high vibes on Ronald Jones?
Do you have high vibes on Ronald Jones? This dude got suspended for peds, and he sucked at football.
Good.
So if he sucks at football while he's on the juice, you tell me, what is he going to be like off the juice?
You know, when you're doing something in a public space, but you're listening to sports radio and you get a piece of news that you don't agree with and you just spout out. I was at the airport when the Ronald Jones bringing on had happened. And I was just like walking around in circles. People probably thought I was on a phone call. But I was like, oh my gosh, you can't be Ronald Jones. Why Ronald Jones? I mean, come on. What are we doing here? He better not make. So I'm just hoping he doesn't make the roster because he'll be more annoying and he will not be rostered in fantasy. We'll be looking at him for cheap value in DFS lineups when we know the matchup is tasty, right? When we know we're facing someone who can't handle that. But no, I wasn't thrilled. And I feel like he's a bookmarker. And I hope that we can make it with these young running backs and Tony Pollard.
So you don't think Leonard Fournette's coming to town or
I'd be so happy with Leonard Fournette in Dallas. Are you kidding me?
Oh, you would be
with him. Yes. Okay. What's crazy is, can you imagine how many times have we seen teammates break apart on a team and then land on another team? Imagine if Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette have to face each other again. I mean, Ronald Jones gets to have a ring and didn't get to do any of the work about it. And Leonard has to feel like, man, you got a job first. You have a ring you didn't earn. And here I am. Okay, still out there on the free agency market. I'm assuming it's a money thing, but there's that. I would love playoff Lenny. He's not as old as people think he is. I think in the right system, he can't be your lead back, but I think sharing the work and doing exactly what Zeke did in the red zone and taking that beating is what Leonard Fournette is there for, as opposed to making Tony Pollard take that beating in the red zone.
Yeah, I mean, that's my biggest concern about Tony Pollard is just, bringing him back, completely healthy, putting a lot of pressure on him. I don't believe in Malik Davis. I don't believe in Rico Dowdle. I definitely don't believe in Ronald Jones. And Deuce Vaughn. Oh, I got Deuce Vaughn in my pocket right here. Hang on one second. Look at it. Here's a tiny little guy. Let me throw the football here. This is the football that he uses, right?
We can't look at that because do you remember what it used to look like when Darren Sproles walked up to the huddle? You'd be like, he could duck in underneath everybody. Like everybody's arms and shoulders were up here. And he would just kind of appear. But yet Darren Sproles was a great running back. So I don't want to discount over the size, but I understand. And when you see him on the sideline, it's almost unbelievable. But he could be speedy. He could be dynamic. But I just think it's going to be huge for Dallas to find a way. We don't see Dak being a running quarterback at this point. For Dallas to find a way with that room to have success in the run game with just Tony Pollard.
Yeah. I worry.
We're going to get to a quick one, but we've got a couple in here. Fantasy Sports Bet says, I drafted Pollard last year, but I just can't justify it this year with a second round pick. I mean, I like the Tony Pollard in a second round, seeing what running backs are left. But again, it's always hard, Howard. I'm sure you agree. When people say second round, it's also hard to know what your room has done. Has your room gone wide receiver heavy in the first 5 picks? Do we have a couple tight ends off the board? Because then that makes Tony Pollard a third round running back.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people are going heavy wide receiver first. And, listen, I'm not going to begrudge it. I'm really not. It's leaving me with some amazing running back value in the back end of the draft. That's why I'm like, probably most comfortable drafting in like the 10 through 12 spot, because everybody's going so banana cakes over, wide receivers early that I'm like, yeah, give me Nick Chubb, give me Bijan Robinson, give me, even Tony Pollard. I mean, this is going to be interesting, with Brian Schottenheimer. I mean, it's Mike McCarthy's offense, right? We know it's Mike McCarthy's offense, but Brian Schottenheimer is definitely a guy who likes to get a little crazy, likes to, unload some passes to the running backs. He likes that short, quick, passing. I mean, it's still an Air Coryell system. in Dallas where the quarterback is throwing to a spot on the field, not actually at the receiver. He's supposed to be leading the receiver. So Dak's got that timing there, but to be able to, if he doesn't see it right then and there, to have Tony Pollard, I think we will see a nice little increase in what Tony Pollard's going to get for targets. That was the thing with Tony Pollard in Kellen Moore's system. And this is why I'm not in on Austin Eckler this year.
I heard you saying this today on your show, and I found it to be a really interesting point. And it brought me to want to continue reading all of these debates on fantasyalarm.com, because it's fascinating to be able to hear perspectives that maybe you didn't think about. You don't even have to make a decision right this minute, but you get some really educated thoughts there with these debates, especially when you get your people in. Britt Flynn's just brilliant, and Coop. But yeah. I heard that and I thought about that, and it really sunk in with me that it could change the use for Austin Eckler this season.
But it will change the value for Austin Eckler. He's not going to get, what do you have, 107 catches last year? He's not going to have that this year. That's not Kellen Moore's offense. And, and ask any Dallas Cowboy fan. I'll ask you, were you disappointed with the amount of action that Tony Pollard got in the Dallas passing game over the last couple of years? So now you take Kellen Moore out of the equation. You put in a guy like Brian Schottenheimer. I think it is going to help Tony Pollard. Again, my only concern with Pollard is his between the tackles work, because he's coming back from injury. But, man, you just give a couple of dump-off passes, a couple of design screens to Pollard, and I think he excels in this scheme.
When we get back from this break, we're going to talk about something other than the goldfish that was a part of Hard Knocks last night. A new addition to the team, which I'm sure is making Howard Bender very happy. You're listening to Lisa Ann and Howard Bender on Lisa Ann Does Fantasy Bettor on the Bettor Sports Network and Fantasy Alarm.
Bettor Sports Network. Collectible moments.
Everybody up here at U.S. Cellular. Sox 5 runs, 6 hits. The 2-1 to Bartlett. Swing, chop to short. Ramirez has it, throws. Bartlett picks the perfect game. His second no-hitter. People going crazy here at U.S. Cellular. He's mobbed by his teammates. A perfecto.
Now there's a steal by Bird. Underneath the DJ, lays it in. Right up, 1 second left. What a play by Bird. Bird stole the impounding pass. Laid it up to DJ. DJ laid it up at him. And Boston has a 1-point lead with 1 second left.
Out of the I formation on first down. Peterson to carry, looking for running room on the right side, has it to the 25, across the 30, across the 35, and out of bounds at the 40-yard line. Adrian Peterson has just gone over 2,000 yards for the season, the 7th man in NFL history to cross the 2,000-yard mark.
Well, a thundering ovation for number 66, Mario Lemieux.
Just the emotion I'm sure Mario is feeling in this place. You don't appreciate something until it's gone, and it's so great to have Mario back.
Yager turns around. Over to Lemieux. Mario Lemieux, his first goal in his comeback here tonight at the Mellon Arena. And the Penguins lead 3-0, and he is smiling like a butcher's dog. Mario Lemieux.
Oh, the band is out on the field. He's going to go into the end zone. The Bears have scored, but the Bands are out on the field.
Pearson moves in front of the STP Dodge. Petty comes back to the inside. They almost touch as they move down low in the banking. They're going to be side by side as they exit the bank and head for the finish line.
Richard Petty goes back in front. They both spin. They're in the wall. Petty is sliding, slamming into the wall. He's coming down toward the finish line. Will he make it? Pearson is still running. The winner is car number 21. An amazing finish. Richard Petty's car demolished in the front end, as well as car number 21. An unbelievable finish, a terrible crash. David Pearson has won the Daytona 500. Leitner catches, comes down, dribbles, shoots, scores! Christian Leitner has hit the bucket at the buzzer! Pitched by Downing, swinging, there's a drive into left center field. That ball is going to be out of here. It's gone. It's 7-15. There's a new home run champion of all time, and it's Henry Aaron.
The most valuable player is Magic Johnson. 42 points, 15 rebounds, and 7 assists. He starts at center, plays forward and guard and leads the Los Angeles Lakers to a world championship 123-107 over Philadelphia.
Whether you collect sports memorabilia, fantasy championships, or winning bet slips, talk about it on Better Sports Network.
Yeah, here we are in the wild world of the internet, brought to you by Better Sports Network and Fantasy Alarm. Lisa Ann and Howard Bender right here on Lisa Ann Does Fantasy Bettor. And I will say, if you enter a chat with, "Hey, Lisa, you hate me," you're already indicating to me that most likely you've been blocked from all of my other profiles. You could have totally, been on the low about it, and just because I don't remember the 3 million people I have blocked from my accounts. Yes, I just reached 3 million blocked accounts on Twitter. I have more blocked people than followers. Okay, so yeah, I would just not enter that way. I'm just saying. But let's enter the right way and how you felt about when the deal went down for your New York Jets to acquire Dalvin Cook.
I was very much into it, man. I thought it was great. And it's so funny because a lot of Jet fans think I'm crazy for having this, thought process with it. We still have this music's still on loop.
Weird music. What is happening right now?
Shout out to our boy Brian Burns, who's our producer here.
We didn't shout him out yet. I'm the lead. I didn't shout him out, so he was spiting us by giving us some weird, distorted carnival merry-go-round I couldn't jump on.
It's a little weird.
Okay, so now we have, again, we're going to get into this. I always comment on your Twitter. You might be muted, buddy. You know what I mean? I also,
Celtics fan, go away.
I can't engage with everybody. So here we are. So you felt great about it. I think it's a good look as well. Hall coming back healthy. It doesn't matter. We all know what happens to running backs mid-season. If your running back doesn't miss a game, then you'd had a pretty lucky season. Am I right, Howard?
You're definitely right. I mean, listen, my whole philosophy about this is, listen, I get it. It sucks for fantasy owners because Dalvin Cook signing with the Jets means that you're devaluing both Dalvin Cook and Breece Hall. Yep. I downgraded both of them in the Fantasy Alarm cheat sheet when it happened. Not a huge amount, but I dropped Breece Hall to the early 4th round and Dalvin Cook, who I was taking myself in the 5th round, thinking he was going to Miami. I dropped him down to the 6th round, to the mid 6th, just because, these guys are going to share carries. But what was great about this, and this is why I will bet the Jets, and taking them to, possibly win the division, taking them to make the playoffs, is because it allows the Jets to take it easy and ease Breece Hall back in.
Yep,
You don't want him to Saquon Barkley the other leg or that same knee. You don't want him to get hurt again. So if you've got a heavy workload here for Dalvin Cook early on, and you just kind of ease Breece Hall back in, then somewhere around week 6, week 7, Breece Hall is going to be ready to go, beyond ready to go with fresh leg. And you can kind of lower the workload there for Dalvin Cook. And then look at that second half 1-2 punch. Dalvin Cook and Breece Hall.
And the first 4 games of the season are big indicators as well. And that's why I thought it was so smart to bring in Dalvin Cook and know that you have him at 100%. Though Dalvin Cook probably wanted to save the taxes and go to Miami, I don't think he knows what it's like to play there for the first 2 months of the season when it's still really hot.
Yeah, I definitely don't want that.
The Athletics' Josh Kendall believes that Tyler Algier will see 170 touches in 2023. His prediction for Bijan Robinson is 301. I got to tell you, Howard, I have such a good time shooting draft orders on Cameo, and I get to go back and forth and find out who won the league, who lost the league. There's a DM feature, and one guy writes it. He's like, "I lost the championship because I didn't start Tyler Algier," and I'm like, well, if it's a dynasty league, he's lost all of his value. So you could just dump him now because Bijan Robinson with 301 and Algier with 170 touches. I mean, we're seeing this. Do you believe in this rookie as much as everybody else does, Howard?
I love me some Bijan Robinson. Absolutely. I feel like Kendall's got it wrong here. I mean, 170 touches for Tyler Algier. I mean, that puts him on average of 10 touches per game. And I just,
that means he has to play every game as well, not to interrupt.
Right. Exactly. So, I think that's a little bullish for Algier. I definitely think that they're going to go with heavy Bijan Robinson. I mean, listen, I say it all the time. I wish I loved anything as much as that Arthur Smith loves to run the football. And I think that that's what we're looking at here with this situation. It's a must handcuff situation, right? I'm not going to take Bijan Robinson and not draft Tyler Algier because you're investing in the run first scheme, not necessarily the player. But yeah, I had Algier last year. I actually, I beat the better boss in the FSGA League championship last year.
Which you want a liar?
Oh, I'm not a liar. I'm telling you flat out. I beat the better boss because I had Tyler Algier and I had Isaiah Hodgins on my team. I also had Travis Kelce.
Well, let me ask you this. I did a summer of best ball, 30 best ball drafts in 30 days on Fantrax. It was a ton of fun. And between my friend Jeff and I, we were always, taking Cordarrelle Patterson. I won't draft him in a season-long league because I can't manage him. But I feel like in a best ball, he could have some upside. What does this do now for the strength of Bijan Robinson, for Tyler Algier still being an incredible running back? What does it do for the value of Patterson?
Oh, Patterson has no value.
Even in best ball?
Even in best ball.
Oh,
I mean,
Jeff,
listen,
we drafted too early.
if guys get hurt, maybe sun shines on a dog's ass at least once. And that dog's ass right now is Cordarrelle Patterson. Sorry.
Howard, are those your dogs recorded? They sound like yours.
No.
So cute. They sound like yours. The Saints have released wide receiver James Washington, and this is going to become common news, right, Howard? We're going to start to see a lot of players getting released as we see these rosters get cut down.
We're definitely going to see that. I have that. I added that to the show, Doc, for a very specific reason, in that everybody goes so bonkers over these like young wide receivers who come into the league. They dominate in college. They look phenomenal. And then they come into the league and they're not great. They're not great at all. They're quite the disappointment. Think about like Corey Davis. Everybody was like, oh my God, Corey Davis, he dominated. What was it, Western Michigan or Central Michigan that he went to? And he was like, oh, it was the most amazing thing. And he came into the league and it was a bad situation for him. It never panned out. And James Washington was exactly that type of player. So, you got to be careful with a lot of these rookies who are so amazing in college that everybody just expects them to dominate in the NFL level. And that is not the case.
Richie James is getting more first-team work after his training camp and preseason flashes. We're going to be seeing a bit of this too. How much do you take this news seriously, Howard? And how do you factor it into your fantasy football drafts?
I don't. Oh, got a little echo here, Brian Burns.
You got a lot of echo.
A lot of
echo.
Echo.
It's got to be Celtics fans cursing us because it's already said 800 messages in 3 seconds. Me. And I'm sorry that somebody didn't want to yank it to you, Howard. It's very offensive. But, our producer let that post go across the screen. So we now have that embedded in this show.
I've got hurt feelings. I'm not going to lie. It makes me feel ugly. Right? Somebody was like, the beard works. It looks great, right? No, this dude just made me feel bad about myself. So I genuinely believe that I was the eye candy of this show, but apparently
I agree with
it's
you.
not.
I agree with you for sure. Let's talk about some injury news. This is something we never want to hear. Russell Gage is already out for the 2023 season over a knee injury. Now, I hadn't drafted him at all in any of my best ball leagues, but it's still, this isn't the news we want to hear. The only good thing is for the return of Gage in 2024, he gets a nice amount of time to properly recover from this type of an injury.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I'm not really I'm not into Russell Gage for even next year. I actually did draft Gage in a couple of spots in best ball, only because, I figured if there were 3 receiver sets where maybe they did move Chris Godwin to the outside, that Russell Gage would take some snaps out of the slot. But the point is moot. He's done. It's over. It's probably not going to be a great startup for next year either. And we go from there. So Russell Gage out for the season. We're also dealing with two other big wide receiver injuries here just from today alone.
Amon-Ra St. Brown sustained a leg injury during Wednesday's practice. Highly drafted. And we know that Panthers head coach Frank Reich says Miles Sanders' groin is getting close to return to practice.
That makes me very happy. I'm very in on Miles Sanders. Amon-Ra St. Brown, we're going to have to see what they say specifically about the injury. We did sort of dodge a little bit of a bullet with Treylon Burks. I don't know if you saw the footage, but made a catch in practice today, kind of got turned over, and the next thing you know, he's grabbing his knee, and everybody was all freaked out about it. According to Ian Rappaport, the MRI showed an LCL sprain, which means that he will be out for a couple of weeks, but that's a major bullet dodged. Major bullet.
Major bullet dodged. Now, Joe Burrow, who came up lame on his calf a couple of weeks ago at camp, we're still getting the same reports. He'll be back in a couple of weeks, which was said a couple of weeks ago. Do you see Joe Burrow being able to start out the season, game 1, week 1?
It really depends on what they're doing with him. If it were me, if I were the medical staff and I was the coach, I would demand that he wear a walking boot all day, every day, until he's completely healthy. Calf injuries are some of the worst things because, we think that we're feeling okay. It's like, when the doctor says take the antibiotics until they're done. Yeah. And most people take them for like 3 or 4 days.
So they feel better.
Oh, I'm fine. So they stop taking the antibiotics. And the next thing you know that they're not over it. Calf injuries are the same deal. You think that you're doing okay, but then when you put too much of a strain on it, you're immediately going to have a recurrence of that injury. I think it was Jamar Chase who said that, he'd be fine if Joe Burrow missed week 1 because it's about the long game, not the short game. But I feel like if Swaggy Joe can just contain himself, sits in a walking boot, doesn't put any undue pressure on the calf, then I think he could be fine by week 1.
Yeah, I agree with you right there as well. I think he could be, but it is concerning because calves are tricky. He already did have a sleeve on it that day at practice when he pulled up on it that way. So that means it was already bothering him, already dealing with something. But I also think he's so swaggy that he'll play through it.
I would prefer, for the sake of me declaring Jamar Chase as the 1-1 this year, give me a healthy Swaggy Joe.
So you have Chase as the 1-1, which means you do not have Justin Jefferson as the 1-1. Please explain.
Interesting stuff with Jefferson. I mean, listen, he's a phenomenal guy and whatever, but defenses are going to continue to key in on him. Last year, you had Adam Thielen, who is at least pulling some of the coverage away. Thielen saw 96 targets. Respectable player who defenses had to stay honest with. You brought in TJ Hawkinson to kind of help that along, but now coming into this year, you've got a couple of different things. So first and foremost, you got Jamar Chase, you got Justin Jefferson. Who's got the better quarterback? That would be Jamar Chase.
Yeah,
all right.
Agreed.
You've got T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd kind of drawing coverage away.
Yep.
Right. On the Minnesota side, you've got Jordan Addison, a rookie, KJ Osborne, a potential slot receiver, and then TJ Hawkinson. Again, advantage Cincinnati, advantage Jamar Chase. I prefer to see a player who's on the rise than a player who may not he may not necessarily have peaked, but he had such a phenomenal season last year that, again, there's very little room to go up.
Right.
And so for me, that's, one of the reasons why I prefer Jamar Chase. I think he's just got so much working around him for Cincinnati. I mean, everybody's looking at Cincinnati as the potential, AFC champions and going to the Super Bowl. So I think that a strong season out of Jamar Chase, I think he outproduces Justin Jefferson. I'm not saying it's going to be like by a huge margin. I think we're splitting hairs here, but I still give the edge to Jamar Chase. Love me for it or not.
And out of those three, you've got Jamar Chase, who we know is the 1. Who do you see as the 2 and the 3 when it comes to Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins?
Oh, Higgins is easily the number 2 in this offense. I mean, and you see, and defenses believe that also. What they started to do last year was they started to put their top, defenses put their top corner on T. Higgins, and then they put the other cornerback and floated the safety over to double team Jamar Chase. So, like, you're not throwing your top corner onto Tyler Boyd. You're throwing him onto T. Higgins.
Right. Yeah, I get that for sure. Now, we've got a lot of fun stuff to do. We got the Card Sharks game, higher or lower, that we're going to be doing in the second hour. We've got all of you in the chat, and Better Boss is like this over the fact with emojis over Joe Burrow possibly missing. It's okay, Better Boss. Everything is going to be just fine. This is going to be our everyday lingo with injuries and what do we do? What do we do? And I like something that you said, when you're talking about debates and having this back and forth with different analysts' opinions and hosts' opinions. None of us really know the future. If we did, we'd all be winning every fantasy league. We'd all be winning all of our bets. We really don't know. We're looking at what we know, the data that we've gathered, whether it's a new coaching scheme, whether it's another year comfortable in your system, whether it's working on the O-line for some teams, whether it's not working on the O-line for other teams. And that's how you factor in this opinion that you can then go and debate with someone else. But it's all really, us just putting our best foot forward and hoping that our players are studs and not duds.
Indeed. And I'll say this, by the way, if we were right all the time, I would not be sitting here in a very well-decorated sweat lodge. I would be doing this show from like my yacht in the south of France. We'd be together hanging out, right? We'd be like in lounge chairs and stuff like that, just kind of chilling, right? That's what we'd be doing. No, not. I'm here. I'm like sweating bullets right now in the heated summer. So
let's go real quick. We've got time before we get to the top of the hour. I want to do some bold predictions. We have a bold prediction sheet that I'm going to thoroughly fill out this week because I couldn't just give it one day answers, Howard.
Sure.
I really had to go through all of the drafts I've already did. I'm in like 35 best balls already. I've already drafted 3 season-long redraft teams. I keep trying to ignore invites that people are sending me, and they keep coming through in different ways. I don't want to be in more leagues than I was last year, but I do think it's happening. So I saw your bold predictions. You saw mine. So let me go to your first one right here because it's a topic that I heard you and Jim Bowden talking about today on the Fantasy Alarm. Everyone's going to be trying to trade for Courtland Sutton by week 5. So I ask you, for those of us who are stepping into a draft room this week, do you think Courtland Sutton is a player that you should just be drafting whether you want him or not so that you have trade bait if you don't want to keep him? Or you keep him and he, helps your season.
So I do this in the Fantasy Alarm draft guide every single year. I write an article series about coaching systems and coaching breakdowns. And, it gives you the full breakdown of what kind of offensive scheme they run and which players excel the most in it. And here you go. Denver now has Sean Payton and Joe Lombardi running this offense. All right. This offensive scheme that Joe Lombardi runs funnels targets to the X receiver. Always. Go back to Marquez Colston.
Wow.
Go back to Michael Thomas. Look at what the target share did for Mike Williams over the last 2 years with the Chargers. It's such a great spot to be in my opinion, because I know Joe Lombardi's offense, and he is going to funnel targets over to Courtland Sutton. That's not to say that Jerry Jeudy's going to be ignored, because we saw Keenan Allen thrive in this scheme over the last 2 seasons also.
Yep.
We saw a bevy of slot receivers in New Orleans who also, Lance Moore was a guy who comes to mind. Remember Lance Moore? You're like, who the hell is this dude? This dude scored 10 touchdowns in this scheme. So the slot receiver, which is what Jerry Jeudy is going to be, all right, gets work as well. And we know that happens. But if you just go back and you look at what this offensive scheme does, Courtland Sutton's going to get those targets. And, you look at his numbers, look at it, like the stat predictions. I was looking at some stuff over on Underdog, and like you said, we're going to play a little higher or lower. with some underdog stats, and look at what the expectation is for Cortland Sutton for his receptions, 55.5, for his receiving yards, 725 or something like that. I mean, I'm sorry, but Cortland Sutton, like everybody, if you drafted him, you're going to be loving life because you got this in like the 9th or 10th round. If you didn't have him, I'm telling you, by week 5, week 6, you're going to be begging to trade for him. Begging.
So this truly means that our friend Byron in the chat, Byron was in a ton of leagues with me, best ball leagues this summer. So I invited Byron into a season-long redraft. So we'll be talking about that on the show, Howard. It's great to, meet people in this space that invite them into a nice free league, just bragging rights. Let's keep it simple. Everybody set a lineup. You will be thrown out if you don't set your lineup. You ignore trade offers, and we can be real cutthroat here. But our question to you is, what will we get from Russell Wilson? I believe Sean Payton can make a difference, but Russell Wilson is expecting another baby. There's a lot of babies in this house, a lot of distractions. What's going to be the most difference that we see from Russell Wilson? Is it eliminating all of the hoopla? Because it was almost like a carnival act last year. First, he gets the Brinks truck. Then he does the Let's Ride. And then he's doing workouts inside the plane. Like, it was just so much, almost like he wanted to be Sierra.
I did not know there was another baby in play. I mean, that's, we see that with athletes all the time. I mean, listen, you know what? I'm all in on Russ on the road, right? Because no crying baby at home. He's nice and peaceful and quiet, calls up home, has the baby, everything good. Okay, great. I'm going to bed. And that would, I'll be okay with that. Listen, what we've seen with Russell Wilson, what's going to be very interesting to look at here is how Joe Lombardi and Sean Payton handle him, because Drew Brees could roll out at times. He wasn't really an incredibly mobile guy.
Right.
He wasn't as mobile as Russell Wilson is. So they're going to have those rollouts. But, when you take a shorter quarterback who has trouble seeing over the line, he needs to roll out. He needs to kind of, be who he is. He'll pepper the sidelines with targets. I think we're going to be fine with Russell Wilson. I really do. You couldn't get worse than him last year. And that
exactly
scheme was
right.
just absolutely atrocious. Now we know why Aaron Rodgers constantly changes the plays that Nathaniel Hackett has sent in, right? Like, I know Aaron Rodgers is the OC of the Jets right now. It's not Nathaniel Hackett.
Definitely.
So I think that Wilson can work very well with Lombardi and Payton to get his game back going. I mean, I think we're going to end up seeing a really nice version of him with the scheme that they've got going on there in Denver right now. So I'm happy to draft him. Like, you don't have to reach for him, which is great because
no Denver players. You don't have to reach for anybody in that offense. None of them at all.
Great. I'll take Russell as a second quarterback in Superflex all day, every day.
Would you take Russell over Derek Carr?
Yes.
Would you take Russell over Baker Mayfield?
In a heartbeat.
Would you take Russell over Sam Darnold, who's in an interesting spot with Brock Purdy and Trey Lance, but is playing very well?
Well, Lisa Ann, you got to put that ADP a little bit higher here because, like, you're scraping bottom of the barrel QBs. Russell
But that's
Wilson,
how I feel about Russell Wilson after last year, and I got to get it out of my head. I haven't drafted him yet, not even as a second QB, but I think you're completely right, and I think reality is Russell Wilson himself had not seen such an unproductive season for himself. That had to not feel good, right? He was a little bit of a laughing stock as well because of all of the shenanigans. And someone just said, Denver will be, by the way, get in the game. Sometimes I love the internet because of the comments. Other times I do not. But this one I do. Denver will be last in the AFC West. Let's hide. Instead of let's ride.
Yeah.
It's funny.
I got it.
It's funny, but I do see all signs are looking up. We're going to get to a quick break. We're going to continue these bowl predictions. We're going to do a little something that you're going to want to do. You got to sign up at Underdog and use the promo code ALARM. You're going to get 100% deposit match for up to $100. That's free money. There's no reason not to collect free money. This is a $100 match. So go to underdog.com, use the promo code ALARM. You got Best Ball Mania 4, weekly winners, pick'em contest, higher or lower. We're going to do some higher or lower after I blow your mind with my bold predictions right here. Lisa Ann and Howard Bender on Lisa Ann Does Fantasy Bettor on the Bettor Sports Network and Fantasy Alarm.
I feel like this is a quietly contentious point in Dynasty Fantasy Football, what it means to actually be rebuilding. Some people say you should never truly be rebuilding. How do you view the rebuilding versus competing dichotomy in Dynasty?
So I will be the first person to acknowledge that my preferred format or fantasy football is just redraft. The years that I have played Dynasty, it has been I've drafted a win now team because I've seen people that have just gotten into the cycle of rebuilding and thus they just don't make any progress. So if you're rebuilding for the 5th year in a row, I just, I don't know exactly how you get out of it, but yeah, it's definitely something that can happen. And a lot of people, especially when we come out of the NFL draft, everyone's just instantly shipping off, draft picks and everything. So, I mean, it's definitely something that can happen.
Joey, do you feel similarly to it? Do you feel like you see people getting stuck in the rebuilding loop?
I mean, I would say people that try to rebuild in the beginning of seasons, of their fantasy seasons, I see them get stuck in that rut. I would really try to only ever rebuild if I knew I was going to miss the playoffs. Like, I'm always trying to play to win, even if it's maybe I don't know.
I think my big thing is the word rebuild is a much shorter time frame than I think most people say it should be. Like, they look at rebuild as like 3 years out competing. Rebuild, you're looking to compete next season. You know what I mean? Like, if you're doing it now, you're looking to revamp, and maybe there's a one season where you ship it off, but that very next season you should be competing. If you're doing it like that, I'm cool with it, but you got to have a plan, not just keep getting the young players, keep getting the draft picks. Otherwise, you end up like Tim. Maybe not like Tim who gets a bye, but you make the playoffs, you're in that like 4 to 6 range every year, just hovering in the middle. Nothing ever gets better, nothing ever gets worse.
I think I play like you in Dynasty, Simon. I play in 3-year windows.
100%. That's my go-to. And with the rate at which Dynasty leagues turn over, you should really only ever play in a 3-year window.
And here we are back, Lisa and Howard Bender, right here on Lisa Ann Does Fantasy Bettor on the Bettor Sports Network and Fantasy Alarm. Don't forget to go to underdog.com and use the promo code ALARM. Do you want to throw out so your other bold prediction? Falcons will be 5-2 by week 7 and in first place in the NFC South. Now, I'm going to assume that is mainly because of Bijan Robinson.
Well, it's definitely because of Bijan Robinson. All right, here, excuse me. Let's look at the Falcons' schedule here to start off the season, okay? Because this is great. So the Panthers to open, all right, at home. It's against the Panthers, who are in rebuilding mode, and there's going to be a lot that Bryce Young's going to have to learn. Then they go against the Packers, again, a team that's still now fighting for its identity and trying to figure things out. Defense is a little soft. The Lions in Detroit, that's going to be a tough game. It definitely is. But what I love about the Falcons right now is that if they get a lead, they're going to run the ball and try and chew the clock up. Running, we say this all the time, Andrew Cooper and I, running is a luxury of the winning team. Yeah. So I think there could be some like real low scoring games where the Falcons just try and play ball control and time of possession and do it that way. So that game against the Lions will be a tough one. The game against the Jaguars is going to be a tough one as well. But then look at that next 3 games on that. It's the Texans, the Commanders, and the Buccaneers.
Poor Texans.
So if you give them losses to the Lions and the Jaguars, they still have potential wins here against the Panthers, the Packers, the Texans, Commanders, and Bucks. Lions and Tigers, oh my, 5-2.
All right, so let me throw out my second one first. This is a bold prediction, everybody, and I really want you to buckle your seatbelts, okay?
Click.
Make sure your doors are locked. Make sure that your phone is down. No texting and driving. I want you to be paying attention to this. Dallas Cowboys will win a playoff game.
You just blew my mind.
Didn't blow my mind.
I mean, it's been since the 90s, brah. Okay? And we're still considered America's team. Look, I still love my Cowboys because when you're a fan, you don't just jump off ship, right? But we don't, all of my friends are Cowboys fans. Now, other than Adam Ronas, who actually still has some, gets upset over it. My friends and I just expect it. We watch the game, they lose, we go about our day. It's become normal. We've normalized this basicness. Hey, how did Celtics fan get back in here? Okay. I thought we had blocked him. Okay. This person, no Celtics fan. You will never be in a league with me ever. Okay. By the way, Howard, I don't know if you know this, but one of my New Year's resolutions was to no longer troll trolls on social media, which is, I'm stuck with it. It's now, it took me 30 days to form the habit. 60 days to stick with it. I have not trolled a troll. I just block everybody now because I know if I engage, then I'm trolling a troll. So I just mute or block. But, I feel like freely I can verbally troll and it doesn't go against my New Year's resolution. I'm also calling it out to our producer. This person's probably going to spell their name multiple different ways. Get this person out of here. They're an annoying turd. Okay. So
Can I ask you a question? This actually is a personal question. Can I ask you a personal question?
Please.
Do you consider me a good person?
Of course.
Am I a nice person?
Howard, yes.
Would you say that my karma in this world is on the positive side?
Oh, your karma account is like billionaire, trillionaire status. Yes, you are so in. Yes.
Then why in the world am I being punished every single year doing shows with you, Jim Bowden, Jen Piacenti, Adam Ronas, Glenn Colton, right? Can somebody tell me why my life is so surrounded by Cowboys homers that I have to endure this kind of talk on the regular?
I'll tell you why. Because we're all old. Okay, Jen Piacenti is not, so we can't count Jen. But because of our age, and I tell a lot of people this, like young people don't understand. Growing up in the 70s, there was 3 or 4 games you were able to catch at best, right? 3 or 4 teams. That was it. That was all you really watched. And so you gravitated towards those teams. And so you see younger fans or Kansas City Chief fans or Jacksonville Jaguars, but all of us growing up in a certain era were fans of one of maybe 4 teams. But yeah, you are a magnetic. It's magnetic. So that was my one prediction. My second prediction is this, and it is because I spend due time on Instagram making sure all of my players are having great vacations. And we talk about the draft coming up after we do our little segment here, higher or lower. We're going to talk about this player. I say Christian McCaffrey rushes for 1,500 yards.
I'm okay with that. I mean, I love Christian McCaffrey. As a player, you have to love him. You have to respect what he does. He's not the biggest player out there, but he's one of the fastest. He's elusive, and he does actually do a good job with yards after contact as well. And so that's really, I don't root against him. I get it that people are scared to take him with that high pick because of the injury history. But, you have to go into a season, with a certain amount of, I'm not going to say injury agnostic because you do have to take it into consideration. But if I'm sitting there and let's say I'm picking like 5th or 6th and McCaffrey falls to that point, I'm in. I mean, you have to be in. The way Kyle Shanahan runs the offense, the way that they use the run to set up the pass.
Exactly.
The trickery that they like to use. Why wouldn't you?
It's really the system for me. You know, he was great in Carolina. When he went to San Fran, I was like, this is going to be the home of all homes. He is just going to get it done there. And when I say I follow everyone's IG, he's had lovely vacations with his significant other. He still works out every single day. It is a bold prediction. Byron says more like 1,200, which could be possible, but you can still look at a prop that's between 1,200 and 1,500 and make a little bit of money. Let's go here right now. We're going to do our underdog higher or lower. This is like the old Card Sharks game that I have no idea about.
What do you mean you have no idea about Card Sharks?
Okay, see, you have to understand, when I was a child, I was only allowed to watch an hour of television unless it was sports. And that hour of television was shared with my brother. We were each allowed to pick one 30-minute show. So I always picked Laverne and Shirley. He usually picked Happy Days. Then it got to the A-Team, and I was like, that's a little bit violent for me. I was afraid of the A-Team. Could only watch half of Your Incredible Hulk. So I didn't see a lot of these game shows in the 70s and 80s.
Didn't you ever stay home sick from school and like watch game shows all morning?
No. When we stayed home sick from school, we stayed at my grandparents' house, and my grandmother would give me a bunch of books to read. There was no just gluing it down in front of the TV. So yeah, I was, look, this is why I'm weird. Okay. This is why I'm weird. But I'm going to act like I know about this game show because we're playing it right now, and it's all about underdog.com. Go there and use the promo code ALARM to get the $100 match to your first deposit for new users only. So here we go. Are we going higher or lower on this one right here? I didn't know if we had a theme song. I was kind of stalling for it. Did you see that, Howard?
Do we have a theme song there, Brian Burns?
I think
Brian.
I think he's really trying to fight Celtics fan who is coming in through every single possible channel, and he can't get. Okay.
You gotta love a revamped 70s groove, don't you? Come on.
Revamped 70s groove, higher or lower? Justin Fields passing yards, 2,985 and a half. Let's just be precise here. Let's not go 3/4, 1/4. I'll read that one again. Justin Fields passing yards. You guys can chime in. Would you go higher or lower on this one? Get it to us in the chat so we can push down all those other comments. Justin Fields passing yards, 2,985 and a half.
Lisa Ann, I'm going to say that number is going to be a little bit higher. All right. I think that the Bears really like that. I think the Bears.
That was a boingo.
The Bears want him. They want him to throw more. You just got him DJ Moore.
Yep, agreed.
Right? You have Darnell Mooney. You've got Cole Kmet. You've got weapons. They're not the most amazing, mind-blowing weapons out there, but you have to do what the Ravens did with Lamar Jackson. We all know he wants to run. We all know that. But you're not going to open up the running lanes wider for Justin Fields unless you actually believe that he will throw the ball instead of taking off on his own. So I think the Bears are all working that into the offense. And I think, listen, do I think that Justin Fields can throw for more than 3,000 yards? Yes, I do.
Yeah, and I'm going to go higher on that one as well. I agree with you. Justin Fields, used his legs for managers last season, and though it was very helpful, defenses are going to be looking for that. This year is going to be when Justin Fields is really going to have to use his arm, and I think DJ Moore is going to be the way he goes. Our young Bryce Young passing touchdowns, 21 and a half. It's a solid season for a rookie. I'm going to go lower on underdog.com on this one.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that number should definitely be a little bit lower. And just to err on the side of caution, is he capable of it? Yes. Is Frank Reich great in developing quarterbacks? Yes, 100%. He got so much out of Carson Wentz back when they were together with the Eagles. But I mean, this is going to be a new year. There's a learning curve here for Bryce Young. So I mean, I think we're close to it, but 19-20 touchdowns is probably the ceiling for me. So yeah, lower for me.
Man, these are some great props for our followers here to be using, especially if they're new users at underdog.com and they go and use that promo code ALARM. I mean,
So
imagine if you had the extra hundy.
It's actually go to fantasyalarm.com/underdog.
Oh, I messed that up.
Oh, no, it's okay. It's all good. It's all good.
Okay,
Actually,
you're right.
I think if you go to underdog.com, it brings you to their blog site, their content site there.
Okay, so we're going to go fantasyalarm.com/underdog. You're going to use the promo code ALARM. You're going to get a $100 match to your first $100 deposit if you're a new user. Let's go to the next one here. Lamar Jackson rushing touchdown, 6.5. Are we going higher or lower? I'll go first on this one. I go lower.
Oh, I was waiting for you to tell me why. You want my answer? All right.
I go lower because I don't think Lamar Jackson needs to run this year as much as he has with the weapons. We also see when quarterbacks get a little bit older and finally get paid, they run a lot less. Okay. That gumption and look, it's common sense. We see it all the time. We see it. We saw it Justin Fields, we saw it in Philly. We see it around, but I think that this is the year where he doesn't have to force that as much. 5 would still be a great number for rushing touchdowns for Lamar Jackson on the season. And that's just a little bit lower than the number that's here on Underdog at 6.5.
Well, Lisa Ann, I'm going to say that I think this number is going to be a little bit higher for Lamar Jackson. I'm kind of, I've been diving into Todd Monken's air raid offense and what he likes to do. And listen, you brought in, you drafted Zay Flowers, you bring in Odell Beckham, you got a healthy Rashad Bateman, and then you've got the most beautiful, tasty, delish target in the Mandrews. And so you've got all these weapons, but what's going to happen is that Monken's offense is going to spread the defense horizontally. Right, so you're going to all be spread out. They're all going to be covering those receiving weapons, and Lamar Jackson's just going to see daylight. He's just going to see daylight. Now he could turn around and pitch it back to J.K. Dobbins.
Sure,
probably not. I think Lamar Jackson's going to do a substantial amount of running still this year, and listen, I mean 6.5. It's a tough line, but I mean, if Daniel Jones can run for 7 touchdowns last year, I think Lamar Jackson can do it this year.
Let's go to Tony Pollard. Let's do a homer pick. You haven't heard me mention the Cowboys in about 3.2 minutes. I think it's appropriate that I weave it in here. Okay. So just keeping on brand. You know what I mean? Tony Pollard rushing touchdowns, 7.5. Now, so I don't bet on my team. I don't play odds on my team. I can't give a higher or lower on this one because I'm superstitious. I always put my right shoe on first. Even when I go to the shoe store and they bring out shoes for me to try on, if that person tries to hand me the left shoe, I'm like, what are you doing? It's right shoe first.
Really? Is it like breaking a mirror, like 7 years bad luck if you put the left shoe on first?
I don't know. I've never tried it. My entire life.
Your entire life?
Never tried it.
Interesting.
And I can't.
I love the fact that we've known each other for years, and I'm learning little nuances here.
You just blew my mind.
Blew it.
I had to face these facts. I did a 30 for 30 during the pandemic. So it was 30 questions for 30 days on a YouTube Live every day. And one of the questions are you superstitious? And everybody in the room would share their superstitions. And I had to really deep dive into these things. And I'm like, what is it that I do every day? And I'm like, yeah, weirdo. You've never put your left shoe on first. Not your sock, not your shoe. Nothing.
Wow. Very interesting. I like that.
Okay,
all right. Well, then
Tony Pollard.
I'll answer the Tony Pollard question. 7.5 rushing touchdowns. So, Lisa, this has nothing to do with my hatred for the Cowboys. This has everything to do with the fact that I think we'll see a substantial number of receiving touchdowns for Tony Pollard. But I'll go with this number being lower and say that he's more like a 6 or 7 rushing touchdown, and then like an 8 or 9 receiving touchdown type guy.
Okay, I get it. I don't mind that. It's not hurting my soul too much. Cortland Sutton, who we mentioned earlier, We're going higher or lower, everybody.
Higher.
Everyone else agrees with you. Oh my gosh. Receiving yards.
Higher.
700. So this is a clean one right here. Go to fantasyalarm.com/underdog. Use the promo code alarm. 725.5 yards. You definitely think this is higher for Cortland Sutton.
Smash higher. Smash it. And his receptions at 55.5, smash it higher. I mean, yes, higher. I think Cortland Sutton can get 1,000 receiving yards this year. I think Cortland Sutton can have anywhere from like 80 to 90 catches this year. Higher. It's the X receiver. Look at that. In honor of Dez Bryant, my new best friend, it's the X receiver in a Joe Lombardi offense.
How awesome was that, getting to interview Dez Bryant at the Expo on Sunday?
A little piece of me dies inside knowing that he's a Cowboy and that I loved him so much. The nicest guy in the world. Like, listen, athletes who are like, paid to endorse and paid to make appearances, and they'll sign a couple of autographs or whatever, and they'll just kind of phone it in. Dez was so genuine and so nice and so attentive. And then his tweets afterwards,
Yes,
talking about the
so
community.
kind. Yeah.
Like, here, this is my problem in life, Lisa, and this is another thing that kind of just I'm torn, I'm conflicted. You and I at the FSGA, you introduced me to Michael Irvin.
I know. I was just thinking about that.
Such a great dude, also.
I
like
know.
such a great dude. So I meet Michael Irvin. You introduced me to Irvin, phenomenal, and now Dez, phenomenal. I mean, it hurts me so much. Again, I wonder what I did in a former life to have to deserve this.
I mean, why wouldn't you just wonder in a former life that when you came into this life that you were supposed to be a Dallas Cowboys fan? I mean, you've met two of the greats in 2023, and the year isn't even over yet. You got one-on-one time with Michael Irvin in February in Vegas at FSGA. Now all this time with Dez. Maybe you were a Cowboys fan in a previous life. Maybe you were a Cowboys player. Maybe you were a coach.
Well, I mean, listen, if I was Tom Landry in another life, I'd be okay with that. All right.
Let's talk about Calvin Ridley, a player that I drafted in the Queen's Classic. We're going to get to some coverage of that draft so you can know the wild things that took place as I was drafting from the 9 spot in a 14-team league. Calvin,
You crushed that draft, by the way. You destroyed that draft. All right, we'll talk about it after Calvin Ridley, but I just want you to know that I genuinely believe that you crushed that draft.
Thank you. Calvin Ridley receiving yards, 925.5. This is for a higher or lower at Underdog.
I'm gonna go higher. I think I think he could kind of get off to a slower start this year, and I think that Trevor Lawrence has that familiarity with Christian Kirk. But I think that over time here, I think Calvin Ridley, the Jaguars could have multiple 1,000-yard receivers. So, the only reason that you would say lower on this for Calvin Ridley is if you thought that he was going to get injured. And I don't think he's going to get injured. And I think he's a strong play here. So I think that number is definitely going to be higher.
I got to say this. I think it's going to be higher as well. I've been drafting him in a ton of leagues already. But I will say, whenever I think of Calvin Ridley, do you remember the movie Friday?
Of course.
I think of Craig getting fired on his day off, right? Because I think about the fact that Calvin Ridley, I love the fact that he's a conservative bettor. When you find out the money these players are getting suspended for, you realize like, oh, they're like us. They're placing some $20 bets. I mean, the whole thing was $1,500 total. You throw it all away over $1,500, but yeah, I respect it because you're not having to call Gamblers Anonymous. You're good, right? But I do think of Calvin Ridley, and look, he worked out all season. A whole season is a long time. We know that, but it wasn't for injury. And I think he's in a perfect situation. I absolutely love Trevor Lawrence, not just his hair. So I was over on that one as well. Let's get to 2 more of these before we get to my draft after the break. Let's see, Stephon Diggs, who do you think has made it up completely with his quarterback, Josh Allen? Some hurt feelings.
I mean, it's weird, right? I do feel like there are some hurt feelings going on. I'm not really sure why, but we're looking at Stephon Diggs receptions here, and the number is 99.5. It's a lot. And I'm going to say this. I'm going to say lower.
Okay.
Because they didn't go out, with the exception of drafting Dalton Kincaid,
Yes.
who should line up in the slot a significant amount of time. They didn't do anything with their receiving core. Gabe Davis is still there. They lost Isaiah McKenzie as their slot receiver. Khalil Shakir's not having himself that great of a camp either.
Right.
I just don't like what's going on with Buffalo. And I think that if you start double covering Diggs, I think that the Bills are going to suffer a little bit, or at least the production for Stephon Diggs. So I'm going to say lower.
I'm
for
with you on that
Trayvon's
one.
brother.
And it's crazy to think that, we had so much talk about the Stephon Diggs situation with Josh Allen. Then we hear nothing. Then we get a side eye. And now it's just like, it's mute. Like we know nothing. But I think Dawson Knox can come on a bit stronger this year. I don't want to discount the player that he is because of the sadness that he dealt with right before the season started last year. I think that had a huge impact on his season. So for me, I'd like to see him emerge as well, as you know, because I did draft him. One more here. And this is a great one. We're talking higher, lower. You can find all of these at fantasyalarm.com/underdog. If you use the code ALARM, you can get a $100 match for your first $100 deposit, new customers only. Nick Chubb, 100+ rushing yard games. The total is 6.5. Are you going higher or lower, Howard Bender?
This one is a tough one for me.
It is.
You know he's my favorite running back in the NFL.
Yes, I do.
I love him so much. 6.5 100-yard games. That's a lot. I'm gonna say lower. I'm gonna say lower.
Let me ask you this: Would you like it if it was 6 or if it was 5.5? And by the way, it's great to see Rachel joining us in the room. Hello, Rachel. How are you? That's our friend Tootsie Pop. Would you be happier if the number for Nick Chubb, 100+ rushing games, was 6 or 5?
I mean, if you told me it was 5.5, then I'd probably say higher and go for the 6. Such a tough number. That's a
tough number.
Really tough number.
And I think something to take into consideration when you're really analyzing the schedules this year is these additional trips overseas, this potential flex on Thursday night games. There's going to be a lot of caveats that are out of our control that could really change the potential of this kind of a stat line for a higher or lower. What I would do in this situation, Howard, is I would just avoid deciding on this one. You know, sometimes when you're looking at some lines and you feel really good about them, you felt great about Lamar Jackson, you felt great about Justin Fields, you feel great about Cortland Sutton. Whenever you're getting into these fun things, right? Getting a little action, however it is, whether you're doing it on Underdog, you have to ask yourself, if something gave you too much of a pause, then just stay away. Don't even get involved in it. You don't have to decide.
I like that because that's the thing, is that people always feel compelled to have to. You don't have to. And I mean, for this line here, I mean, Chubb had 700-yard games last year.
Yep.
So it's like right there on the cusp of of the whole thing. So yeah, it would be a no pick for me. And I'd leave it at that. But if put a gun to my head, and I'll say lower.
Well, our better boss says higher. Everyone else says lower. Rachel says higher. But yes, we're seeing this back and forth. So all of you can get involved. Go and look at all of these. Go to fantasyalarm.com/underdog. So it's draft time. We're going to relive the draft. Now, you got to meet Kay, my fabulous content creator that travels the world with me. Kay put together, we already got 3 up. I'm going to put the last one up tonight. All of our vlogs from the event at the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton for the Fantasy Football Expo. And we did some really cool work together for the draft. We've got some clips that we're going to play during this break, but Kay set up the time-lapse GoPro on me, Howard, then had the other GoPro, mixes in the music, gets all the guide that I had with me. Like, it is just great stuff. And I'm pretty proud because Howard has given me the stamp of approval for my squad. I was drafting from the 9th spot. It was a 14-team league. We're going to go through all of that when we get back. You're listening to Lisa Ann and Howard Bender right here on Lisa Ann Does Fantasy Bettor on the Bettor Sports Network and Fantasy Alarm. Here we are. It is day 2 of the Fantasy Expo in Canton, Ohio. We are currently at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I could not be more excited to be here, but take it up a notch. I've got a draft today. I am part of the Queen's Classic. I'm honored to be invited into such a league. We're going to sit in the draft room today. We're going to see a lot of stressing going on, maybe some shit talking, but this is part of my life that is just feeds my soul, and I cannot wait to take you with me. So we are here in the draft room. Queen's Classic and the King's Classic are drafting together. This is going to be an offline draft. What that means is you really got to pay attention. If you didn't bring your own rankings, you should bring rankings so you can at least cross off players when they're drafted, because there's nothing more shameful than in round 5 where you're like, is Cooper Kupp still available? And somebody yells at you, he was drafted number 7 in the first round, all around. How do you not know this? So you got to pay attention. Now, this is not a super flex league, but we're not drafting kicker or a defense. We have 3 extra flex positions. I like to use those flex positions for wide receivers and tight ends. If I have an additional running back, I'll throw them in there. You're going to get to see how this draft goes down. You can see the draft board up here. Picks gone so far. First pick, Justin Jefferson. Second pick, Jamar Chase. Third pick, Travis Kelce. I've not seen him go before pick 6, but I get it. I mean, you want some of that Kansas City offense. You want the strongest relationship for Patrick Mahomes, and you got that. Austin Eckler, running back out of Los Angeles. That home draft during the pandemic, when he was sitting here with 2 phones and his girl on the side tried taking his phone, he didn't even flinch. He grabbed that phone out. I was like, his peripherals. I want him on my team. The Queen's Classic draft is in the books. It was an amazing draft. I'm glad you were with me.
Your shoe game is amazing.
We are back right here. Lisa Ann and Howard Bender. Lisa Ann Does Fantasy Bettor. You can share this YouTube on Fantasy Alarm or the Bettor Sports Network. And thank you, Howard, because when I ordered that t-shirt, okay, it didn't come for a while. And I was like, my shoes have to be precise. This shoe swag is a thing for me. I love it. Living in New York City, you know, you walk by anywhere you go, there's like a massive sneaker store. You're like, oh, that weird yellow could go with something, but probably only one thing. So the swag for the shoes gave me some good luck for my draft spot. I drafted from the 9. Now, when we first set up this draft, Howard, I'll let you know, we thought it was going to be an offline draft. Then the crew got together and said, let's do it on Sleeper, but we're going to use Fan Draft for the projection. So I'm like, okay, it does make it easier to know who's available because you're sitting around this C-shaped table, 14 players. You don't want to not cross somebody off. You got to be paying attention. You don't want to be that person. So one of the things we noticed, and it was a very funny moment in the draft, Fan Draft does not have good photos of our players. And at one point, a woman shouted out of nowhere. I don't know who it was because we were all shouted out, what are they doing to our men? Because it was one horrible picture after another, and we were all disappointed. So we straightened out that we were going to be on Sleeper 5th or 6th pick. So I wasn't sure if something got lost in translation because when it landed to me in the 9 spot in the first round of the Queen's Classic, Christian McCaffrey was still available. And I was like, no. I thought I was going to be going wide receiver there. It's why you can't have too much of a plan because it would have been stupid for me not to take Christian McCaffrey.
100%. I mean, that was easily the right pick to make. The fact that he fell to you, I'm blown away. I mean, listen, I love Jefferson. I love Chase. You can always make an argument for Kelce. I'm down on Eckler, but Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, AJ Brown. I don't know if I could take any of those guys ahead of Christian McCaffrey. Bonnie took Nick Chubb right in front of
Right in front of me.
You know what? Jim Coventry did that to me in the King's Classic.
He's such a nice guy.
No, he's not. He's a jerk.
So I was eyeing up Nick Chubb as well and thinking, wow, if Nick Chubb lands to me. But at the same time, if you had to choose between Nick Chubb and Christian McCaffrey, who are you taking, Howard?
Ooh. Oh, me personally, well, I got to take Nick Chubb because
Okay.
he's I got to stay on
He's your
brand.
guy. I get it. I get it. But so I felt really great about that spot. Now we're wrapping around to the second round, and I got my eyes on Tony Pollard. I am so just like, yeah, give me Tony Pollard. He's gonna be there. My heart is set. And by the way, Kay has never seen this side of me where you want someone to pick. We didn't set a clock until the 6th round. And it was like 5-7 minutes for a pick for a couple people. So when you are one spot till you're up and you have a player that you are so excited you could potentially have, all you want that person to do is make their pick so that you can decide if you even get that player or not. Like you can't, the suspense is just like kills you. So Tony Pollard was taken. So Jonathan Taylor's sitting there, JT. Okay. JT's sitting there. I understand there's some relationship woes. Okay. But, we've all dealt with relationship woes before. I understand that he's another running back that hasn't really read the room and realized that there's not a lot out there for running backs. And there's a lot of running backs out there that are going to go on the cheap and that are serviceable. And there's really not a home for JT to make the move to. So I say, he wallows in this for a little while. He get back in the locker room. He doesn't want to pay the fine. He has some fun with his friends, and he goes out there and he balls to raise his value so that he has value next season. Are you going to throw your career away, Jonathan Taylor? Because I took you with my second pick.
I'll buy the dip on Jonathan Taylor. I think he's a quality guy. Now, I guess he just left camp today for personal reasons, is what they said, and the team gave him permission to leave. All this talk about, the ankle, because he had ankle surgery to kind of clean the things up. Early on in the offseason. By now, I mean, that ankle should be healed up. Now, some people are saying that there might be something, significantly wrong with him. And that's why I'm like, he's using the ankle as an excuse. He's using the ankle to say, I will show up to camp and not be fined.
Right.
But I ain't playing on the field until we start, legitimately having a conversation about my contract. And I mean, he has no leg to stand on. He has
no leverage
whatsoever in this. I mean, Jim Irsay's acting like an a-hole.
I kind of love it.
I'm like Irsay, just stop. Get the dude.
I kind of love it.
Trying to put something together here. Damn it.
So fingers crossed, but that's exactly what I did. I bought the dip. I looked at it as if I didn't have this information of some drama going on in home, then I wouldn't even know. And I would be very happy to get Jonathan Taylor in the second round. My third pick, Najee Harris went right before me, though I was ready to shore up a wide receiver. I went with one Jacksonville wide receiver, Calvin Ridley, pick 37. Remember, this is a 14-team league, which looks a little bit different than a 12.
Yeah. Ridley's a great pick. It's an absolutely, listen, if you believe in the Jacksonville Jaguars, which I do, and I said this last year in the offseason when they brought in Doug Peterson and he put his system into this, I was like, just give the Jags a mulligan for the year before. Urban Meyer was a jackass. And so, now you're putting a legitimate, proven offensive scheme with these players, and they thrived unbelievably in that offense. So, now you're adding Calvin Ridley to that mix. I mean, I love it, man. I really do. I think he's going to be a star player again this year.
At this point, quite a few quarterbacks were going off the board. And, you get to that sweet spot where you're like, okay, anybody I would have wanted is gone. The next tier I'm not going to worry about. But George Kittle's sitting there with my fourth pick. I normally don't grab a tight end this early, but if you're going to get one of these great tight ends, this is how you're going to have to take him. He has gone earlier in a lot of drafts I've been involved in. So I felt like out of my first four picks, three of them just kind of weirdly landed to me.
As long as George Kittle stays away from WrestleMania, then
he was so good with McAfee on WrestleMania. He was so good. Did you watch it?
Yes, I saw.
It was so good. Oh my gosh! I've gotten so back into WrestleMania as is, but like Kittle on WrestleMania was a dream come true.
Here you go. You ready for this one? I was at the very first WrestleMania in Madison Square Garden.
How many years ago was that?
That was a very, very long time ago.
Very long.
It was like what, early to mid 80s, I guess it was.
So do you still watch regularly?
No,
Okay,
I
so
haven't
was gonna
watched
say-
wrestling in very, very long time.
I only watch when McAfee's on. Because of course I watch every single thing that McAfee does because I find him to be one of the most entertaining humans. He's just dynamic, but his WrestleMania stuff is like some of the best. And bring Kittle in was next level. Now with pick 6, this is where I got a little bit of question marks here. Okay, Siri, I'm not talking to you. I went with Seattle wide receiver. You know, she does that once in a while. Jackson Smith and Jigma. How do you feel about JSN this early in a draft? And the reason I did it is looking around. I don't think Christian Kirk's going to have a lot. I can't take another Jacksonville wide receiver. I'm looking at Chris Godwin. I do think he's still going to have a decent season, but I don't know how much faith I have in the quarterback play there. Mike Williams, will you make it through 8 games? So at that point, I was just like, you know what? I believe in Geno Smith. I love what Geno Smith put together in Seattle last season. And though I love DK and Tyler, not available, so I went with JSN.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you look at the possibilities there. I mean, Pete Carroll let the reins go a little bit last year, and Shane Waldron, who, came from the Rams, really installed this passing game. And Geno Smith threw I think it was the 6th most pass attempts in the NFL last year. Now they're giving him another weapon. They do have, a decent running game, but I think that Shane Waldron's kind of evening out. I'll be honest with you. This is not my favorite pick that you made. I understand why you made that pick, because you probably had Scott Engel hanging over you and being like, take the Seattle guy. Just take the Seattle guy.
Excuse me. Are you talking about the King?
The King, Scott Engel. Like Mr. Seahawk, right?
Mr. Seahawk.
I understand the pick. It's not my favorite that you made, but, considering guys like Godwin and Addison, were off the board.
Yep.
And I mean, I'm not into Pittman. I wouldn't have taken Michael Thomas over him. Pickens or Deontay Johnson. I don't think you're missing a beat there. So I accept the pick. How about that?
Now I wrapped around and I almost made a decision that I never want to make, and I almost did it. I almost drafted my quarterback, Dak Prescott.
Ooh.
And you know when I learned not to do that? In one of my first couple of years playing fantasy, I had Romo. Didn't play out well for me. I had Dez. He got injured that year. I was just like, it hurts enough. So Dak was taken 2 picks before. And at that point, the quarterback run is it's really getting scarce. So I went with Tua. I love what Tua put together last season. I'm not one of those people that believes that Tua is injury prone. I do believe these were unique situations. Saquon came back from an injury. Remember, had that trip up and then got injured again. That was not even I got knocked out. You know what I mean? It was just a trip up. So I like the squad. I like that Tyreek Hill showed us that he could be great no matter who he's playing with, whether it's in Kansas City with a winning coach and a winning organization, or whether it's in Miami which we kind of looked at as a bit of a rebuild when they brought Tyreek there. And now all the pieces around. I just think Tua has a ton of options and has a solid squad. And again, everyone's going to say as long as he stays healthy, but we hope that for all of our players.
Exactly. I mean, listen, Tyreek Hill is a 1st-round draft pick. Jalen Waddle is a 2nd-round draft pick. You can't tell me that you're out on the quarterback, but you're in on those 2 wide receivers.
Yes, this is what people do to me all the time. You're so right. That's going to be my counter argument. Now, my next pick really threw the room for a curveball, but the reason I did it is a theory I spoke of earlier. We're not going to get many running backs that play every game throughout the season. Running backs get injured. We know this. The entire NFL is devaluing the running back because of the longevity in the actual position, because of health, because of wear and tear, tread on the tires, as we say. They've been playing since they were in grade school, what have you. But Alvin Kamara, 3-game suspension, doesn't matter to me because he's going to be sitting it out when my other running backs are getting terrorized, and he's going to have a strength at the end of the season that I'm really going to need.
Yeah, I mean, listen, a 7th-round Alvin Kamara with just a 3-game suspension. Kendry Miller is banged up, so we don't know what even his situation is going to be like. And then you've got Jamal Williams, who, I mean, for all intents and purposes, Jamal Williams is more of a journeyman kind of guy who takes it between the tackles. He just ended up in a phenomenal situation with Detroit last year where he was just given every single goal line carry. I don't know if the Saints are going to do that with him. It's not like Pete Carmichael, their offensive coordinator. He's not really about that. on the regular. I mean, they had Mark Ingram, but Mark Ingram still always played a secondary role to Alvin Kamara. So 7th round to get a starting running back like that, I think that's a great pick. Smart pick.
And 3 weeks will fly by, you know, and that's a big one. So we got some news in here in the chat. Angie joining us and says, sorry, I'm late, but I come with good news for Howard. It's possible that you just won the JJ jersey on the Women of Fantasy Football broadcast a little while ago. So is that a Justin Jefferson jersey?
Autograph, Justin Jefferson jersey.
Look at you go. And we're just, you get a jersey. You get a jersey. Good for you there, Howard. So now we're talking about round 8. Again, this is the Queen's Classic. You can go back and watch my recap video. The Real Lisa Ann is my YouTube channel. I wanted some shares in Kansas City. I always feel like I want to have a little piece of something in Kansas City. And what was left right there was wide receiver Kadarius Toney.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the dude's batshit crazy. I'm not gonna lie. You see those videos that he did about like the Giants and Giants fans? It's like, come on, dude, you got your Super Bowl ring. Shut up. You don't need to play that game. But
I kind of like the crazy. I like to see the personality of these kids. I mean, one person handles it one way. Aaron Rodgers goes into a darkness retreat, and Tooney goes Tooney. You know what I mean? It just gives us a little. You're giving us some little news and it's slow news time. I think it's fantastic. But wild or not, he's got a lot to prove and a lot of smack to talk, which means he's got to prevent smack talk coming back at him, which means he has to play better because he doesn't want that same serving that he dished out.
yeah, I mean, I'll you know what? Listen, I'm a stodgy old fart at times. I don't like when baseball players bat flip, you know, like a solo home
I
run
love a
when
good bat
when their
flip.
team's losing 7-0 and they're like, yeah, I just hit this meaningless home run, so I'm gonna flip my bat. You know, I mean but that's me. So we can agree to disagree about the attitude of Kadarius with that. But the fact of the matter is his quarterback is Patrick Mahomes.
Yep.
He is going to be on the field on the regular, and he's going to see, you know, a ton of targets. So I mean, again, solid pick, tremendous upside. You can't speak out against it in any way, shape, or form. And I mean, he's your third wide receiver in this format here. So I'm totally comfortable with that. I think it's a great pick.
And am I right that you have a best ball tourney going on Friday on your show, Howard?
I do. Do you want to draft?
On the Fantasy Alarm? I may or I may not. I'll let you know that later on. I
You
thought about
let
it
me
today
know.
when I
I'll
heard
hold a
it.
spot
How
for you.
many spots are full right now?
Oh, I don't know. 3 or 4.
I gotta check in with the boyfriend and see what time he's arriving, because when he is here, I must be making dinner and baking goodies. So
Does he draft?
He does not. He does not play fantasy football or understand it. And when I tried to explain it to him, he just kept saying he does watch football, but he doesn't play fantasy.
You sound like a Peanuts teacher, right? When you start explaining to him about fantasy, he's like, wah, 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 wah,
no,
wah.
he's actually saying to me like, okay, so what you're telling me is that you take this so seriously, and it's really not serious. It's a fake team that you're running because you never could own an actual team.
Boo.
And you're not a coach. You're not a player. I'm like, exactly. Yes, I am this passionate. As I explained it to me, he's like, this is ridiculous. I'm like, it's not. Because what happens is Nick Chubb has a day where he has 3 touchdowns and you have him on 2 of your squads, but then you got to go and look at all of your other matchups to see if you're facing him. So it's an emotional roller coaster. And as happy as you were over the 2 squads you have Nick Chubb on, you went and you saw that on 6 other teams, you face him and you have no chance now.
She's right.
It's emotional
right.
cutting.
I hope he's watching right now, because he needs to understand. You got to embrace the fantasy.
He supports it. He's like, look, if this makes you that happy, you know, then you need to do all of this. In the 9th round, I went with another tight end. In this league, we have 3 flex spots. So I thought, I'll grab another tight end. I love Tyler Higbee. I can't let him go. I can remember working with you years ago when was the birth of the tight end whisperer. And I think you've laid the tight end whisperer aside a little bit, correct? Am I right here?
You are correct. You're 100% correct.
You did, but I remember the birth. I watched the whole lifespan, and now here we are. But I was feeling the tight end whisperer vibes, and right there at that spot, look, we're hearing Matthew Stafford's feeling better than he ever has. I don't know how that's possible because he's older than he ever was. And I don't know about you, Howard. Have you ever woken up today and thought about 10 years ago and 20 years ago and said to yourself, oh, my body feels better than it ever has? No, my body felt great 10 years ago.
No, because I am officially in the worst shape of my life. I will admit that. But here's the thing about Higbee. And yes, this isn't back in 2016 when the tight end whisperer was born. I got away with the Higbee special, as I called it. 1 catch, 8 yards, a touchdown. It was like, set your watch by it. It was like the ultimate DFS play. You were spending down for the tight end. You was like super cheap, and all you needed was a touchdown in order to make value. So, but now you look at what's going on with the Rams, and yeah, listen, Matthew Stafford is older. He's not the same. He's working his way back. Blah, 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 blah. There's Cooper Kupp, but who else is there? You can't look at Van Jefferson or Ben Skoranek and think that those guys are going to be, world beaters by any stretch of the imagination. What you're looking for when you're paying down for a tight end, you're just looking for opportunity. Yep. And that means that you're looking for a guy who is either going to be second or third on his team in the target distribution. And this is what you've got for Higbee. Maybe Van Jefferson out targets him. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's third on that team, but it doesn't matter because he is still in line for steady, consistent targets. And you can't say that about every tight end. You can say that about Higbee.
And just the consistency of being in this system in the same place for that amount of time and not have to worry about a rookie tight end who's going to be used for blocking or everybody thinks going to come on strong. But we know rookie tight ends usually take a little bit of time to settle in and adjust. That was my pick there. We're going to move over to the 10th round. Went with another running back. I went with Cleveland's rookie backup right there, Jerome Ford. Not looking to get a lot of production. He'll probably be a bye-week filler or possibly if there's an injury, which we don't want to happen. I'm not wishing that on your favorite player, but that I have a little bit of trade value there for the Chubb owner so that I could do myself a little trade and offer. Now, I feel like this league, the Queen's Classic, is going to be a lot of friendly trades because I'm in a couple all women's leagues. And what's funny is someone will send out an email, hey, I just had an injury or I'm low on running backs. What do you have? And puts it out to the whole thing. And everybody offers up as if we're like, hey, did you need sugar to make these cookies or, knocking on your neighbor's door for some sugar? And that's really how different it is. So I could see myself looking at Bonnie's team. And if there was an injury, immediately reaching out to Bonnie and saying, hey, Bonnie, I know you had Nick Chubb, take Jerome Ford because I've got Kamara, who's coming off this three-game suspension. So it'll be different. And so having him gives me a little bit of value there for a trade piece.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking at that right now. That's the first thing I thought of was like, okay, you package up Jerome Ford with like Donovan Peoples-Jones even, or, or somebody like that. Or, you know what? I mean, and trade for like Romeo Doubs or something like that, just keep it reasonable. It's not crazy. And I like that. I like that attitude about the making that trade happen.
And in round 11, I had my heart set on Aaron Rodgers. And I really thought nobody was going to take him because nobody was talking about him, right? And I really thought it was going to happen, but it did not happen. He went 3 picks before me. My second pick option was Jared Goff. And I do not feel bad at all about Jared Goff in the 11th round. I think it's a value. I think he had a great season. I think he'll duplicate it. I don't know if it'll be better than it was last season, but he's no Aaron Rodgers.
No, he's definitely no Aaron Rodgers. He's not. I mean, listen, I think Rodgers is in a very good spot. But, I mean, Jared Goff, hopefully Amon-Ra St. Brown is fine.
Yeah.
Right? Jameson Williams will come back. I think Sam Laporta is going to step up nicely over there. I think Goff is a safe pick. I'll say this because, you have to do that when you draft Tua. You have to have some sort of a, reasonably high floor, safe play.
Yep.
To kind of offset things in case something happens. What I have also done, though, is I haven't taken a second quarterback where I've taken Tua until the very last round, and then I just pick up Mike White.
And I did that in best ball, and I still backed me. Like in leagues where I did in leagues where I did 3 quarterbacks, in a best ball draft, I was like, I'll take Mike White with Tua, and you could get him super late. Nobody's thinking about him. And, kudos to Mike White. It's a great opportunity for him to go down to Miami because the room was going to be full in New Jersey in New York with the Jets. Then I thought in the 12th round, I could use some legal help. So I went with Donovan Peoples-Jones. I knew you'd like that one. I knew you'd like that one because you get it, okay? Because you get it, okay? With that said, another wide receiver, I think Deshaun Watson is going to come on strong this season. I think there's going to be a lot of targets out there, and I think we're still unsure who's going to lead the role. We know Cooper is there and does great things, but DPJ, I like DPJ more in best ball than I do in season long. But again, it's a 14-team league, and it's amazing how those 2 extra teams, Howard, really deplete the desirable player pool that much faster. By round 13, you're like, okay, now we're getting to the nuts and bolts of this. I really don't want any of these players, but who fits on my team? What offense have I not gotten a spot of yet? So I realized I did not have any offense in the Buffalo Bills. So I went with one Dawson Knox as my 3rd tight end because, again, it's a 3-flex league.
Yeah, I mean, again, and I did that also. I did that at the end of my Kings Classic draft, which is why I said I liked your draft so much, because you can do something like that. I mean, it's very difficult. A 14-teamer, no kickers and defenses, the player pool thins out so quickly that if you don't attack a position like the tight end, it doesn't have to be tight end premium, right? But, I mean, you can put extra tight ends into your flex spot. I drafted Mark Andrews in mine and then took like 3 more tight ends at the very end of that draft just because, why not? I'd rather take a tight end who I think is going to actually get, 5-6 targets per game and do something with it rather than
a wide receiver that might get a donut. A wide receiver that might get a donut. So right there, my last 3 picks go, because I didn't get Aaron Rodgers, I decided I wanted to get a little share in the New York Jets offense. So I went with one Mecole Hardman, who is shining like a diamond in the sky on Hard Knocks. Really loving getting to know Mecole Hardman, followed by Darius Slayton, wide receiver of New York Giants. And then last pick was a homer pick. I got to do a draft, and that was the Dallas Cowboys running back, Malik Davis, who we mentioned earlier. I felt great about this draft. What I felt best about it is so fun to draft in person.
Oh, yeah. Live drafts are the best.
These are some of the greatest women I think I've ever met. Some of them I've only known from Twitter. How many people did you walk up to over the weekend at the Expo and go, oh, we know each other from Twitter?
Quite a few. Like when somebody was introducing themselves to me and they introduced me by their Twitter handle, that's, I was like, oh, okay, now I know exactly who you are. And people that I see in the chat all the time, Mr. Scampers.
Yeah.
And at Dame Overboard. They
you get to know them.
I was hanging out with them at the Expo, and it was so great. I'm like, I've seen Scampers in the chats all the time. So to be able to sit there and hang out in person, like you pointed out earlier, Rachel at Tootsie Pop.
Yeah.
What a great lady.
What a great lady. Well, for everybody, we thank you so much for joining us tonight. Howard and I will be back every Wednesday night, 7 to 9 p.m. right here with you. Make sure that you go to fantasyalarm.com/underdog and use the code ALARM to take advantage of a $100 bonus for new signups. Howard, I have a homework assignment for you. Please watch Hard Knocks. I know you wanted to binge it, but you'll have 3 episodes because next Tuesday there'll be the 3rd. So please watch it so we can talk about this magician, motivational speaker, and also how great Aaron Rodgers is in the grass and just how fit he is, his guru, all of it. And for all of you in the room, please share this with your friends. We'd love to have more of you in. We're going to be playing all of these games with you every week. Hire Erlover coming back. Howard Bender, so great to work with you again.
Always great to be hanging out with you, Lisa. And thank you so much for having me here as your co-host.
And thanks to our producer, Brian Burns, and everybody that we are signing out. Thanks for joining us so much. Better Boss in the house. Lisa Ann Does Fantasy Bettor on Better Sports Network and the Fantasy Alarm. Have a great night, everybody.